What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast. It still feels a little unnatural just to launch in without our intro music, but we're here as always to talk the nerdy things we enjoy. That's Blake. I'm Will, and today we're talking Worlds Beyond Number, specifically episode 29. And I can't remember the title, but it was
The Spy.
It was sorry, what?
The Spy.
The Spy. It was a doozy. That
Yes.
cliffhanger, though.
Yes.
That cliffhanger, though. We're going to get into that.
Prime BLM.
Yep. And before we get into that juiciness, we just got a couple quick announcements per usual. You know the typical stuff. Join the Discord. There's a link down below. No Critical Role for a week or two more until we have Downfall and a little bit of a hiatus there. So nothing new on that front. But speaking of Critical Role, we do have our annual Calamity rewatch party starting very soon. We're going to be kicking off with episode 1 this Sunday, the 7th?
Yep.
The 7th, and that will be, what time are we starting that? Have we decided?
7:30 Central Time, which
Okay.
If you join the Discord, there's going to be an event that it'll automatically show your time zone.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's always really nice. So yeah, guys, come hang out with us for that. If you're a Worlds Beyond fan and not a Critical Role fan, which I'm assuming there's probably not a large demographic of that specifically on our channel, but if that is you, this will be a great thing to come kind of wet your toes with, because Brennan is the DM for Calamity, and it's absolutely fantastic. Plus we have the current goings on of campaign 3 kind of sort of like tied to that, so it's a great time to refresh on Calamity if you haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, tons of fun. That'll be kicking off this Sunday, and then every subsequent Sunday we'll be watching one episode, so it'll be a month-long kind of rewatch party.
Not to set the stage with too high of expectations, but it may be the best thing I've ever seen in my life. So, especially if you're not super, you kind of watch like D&D kind of casually, I highly recommend Calamity. It's a 4-episode arc, kind of self-contained story, and it is incredible.
Incredible.
You'll just have to check that out. Again, it'll be in our Discord every Sunday.
Absolutely. And I guess, is that it?
Okay. I think that's it.
Alrighty. Well, let's get into the main event in that case.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, kicking off the episode, we like to do a little recap before the episode starts. And what we'll do is we take that recap, we peel it out as its own separate video, and then we also do a deep dive discussion with it. So if you're watching just our recap video, there's actually a link to the full discussion in the description box. But let's get into talking about Worlds Beyond Number, The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, episode 29, The Spy. And this episode opens up with the party having dinner with the Coven of Elders. And it's not quite as homey and relaxing as you may think going to this grand banquet. The party whistles some music, the ballad that Ame came up with back in the town when Naram was being freed, and Port Talon, excuse me. They come into the banquet hall. Grimoire's animals are like all over the place. Some of them are like sitting in chairs, and they begin to make small talk with the witches who are present while eating their dinner. Ame is upbeat and positive, while Suvi is very much staring down Grimoire. Grimoire being the witch who butchered one of her wizards, not just moments before, hours before. There is some conversation, notably Indri's like, hey, I noticed all of your people aren't here. And that's when Grimoire's like, I did brutally murder one of them. To which Indri gives a very sort of cryptic and cold, like, oh, sorry about that, I hope it doesn't happen again kind of remark. Not like in a threatening way, but just like oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Indri tries to change the conversation and lift the conversation, says like, hey, I heard you were singing a tune on the way in. And Ami's like, yes, we were. It's just a tune we really like in our travels. And Indri says, would you like to sing it for us? So the three of them sing this song, terrible performance roles. And Suvi notably only mouths the words, doesn't actually sing. And Indri's like, that was very nice. Good job. Grimoire, though, being very on brand for Grimoire, points out, Suvi, you didn't sing. What's the deal with that? And Ami's like, well, Suvi's, she's her own person. Like, yeah, she didn't want to sing, no big deal. But we know why Suvi's not singing is because she is extremely upset about what she's been through. And I think even Aabria mentioned she still has like the dried blood on her face from her wizard being murdered. Grimoire, continuing to be the button pusher, says, maybe your wizard friend will warm up once she has you sign her contract. To which Ami's like, what contract? And Grimoire's like, yeah, the contract she brought from the Citadel for you to sign. And Ami's like, I don't know anything about that. Well, the conversation gets interrupted with Hakea grumbling about the food, basically saying to Indri, like, the food's terrible. Like, what is this? And then says, like, I'm going to go back to my quarters and, eat my food there. One other detail happens. Indri summons Neef, her assistant, her apprentice, and hands over a plate of food and says to take this to the Antivilis, which seems to be based off of the Antivili, which is a whole lore conversation we'll get into in our discussion. But it was essentially this organization that was destroyed following the Battle of, I think, Cairo is, I think, the connection there, I'm pretty sure. But they talk about that later in the episode and just sort of jog our memories. The party then, the banquet ends. Ame asks to speak to Indri. Ursulon and Aabria kind of go off on their own separate way. And Ame, in chatting with Indri, there's this very weird conversation where Indri's like, hey, about that meeting this morning, sorry that we're talking about like killing you. And there's some very interesting insights that come from this conversation. First of all, Ame is like, I totally get it. I'm here to serve the world. And, if my station has to go, that's okay. I am curious, though, like, who's going to watch over my responsibilities if I'm destroyed and the station's destroyed? And Indri's like, well, these things kind of just have a way of working themselves out. Those, it'll kind of go back to sort of like managing itself, just like these other stations that are no longer around, they kind of manage themselves as well. She also asks about what Grandmother Rin was like, and very slyly mentions that Marara had been having conversations with Rin, and it very much piques Indri's interest. She's like, well, what was happening with Marara? And Ame is very clearly trying to play on this small wedge that she noticed between the two of them when she saw them a couple episodes prior. The other thing that happens that's interesting is that Ame says, well, it's a shame that I'm going to have to be killed because then you'll have to get rid of someone else to keep the voting an odd number of people. And Indri just is totally unfazed by this. She's like, well, we'll figure it out. Almost like she's not surprised by this data point. And even the party above the table, there's a moment after that where Abria's like, I hope Ame's doing okay. I know she wouldn't reveal our plan to, suppose they have to remove another witch. And Ursulon's like, yeah, she probably wouldn't do that. But all that to say, Indri says, hey, I have to go meet with my apprentice. And we basically cut back to Suvi and Ursulon for the second half. Do you want to take it from there?
Yes, sir. What if I was like, no? So we pick up on the second half with Suvi and Ursulon. Basically, he's escorting her back to her keep. And during this, Suvi basically is catching up Ursulon on some of the lore about the, and I'm probably going to butcher these names, the Antevilian. How do you say it? Do you remember?
I said the Antivoli is how I.
Antivoli. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the name of the place. So the Antivoli and the Aquadati, which were like these two
Yeah.
factions
Right.
that kind of had, I don't know if civil war is the right word
I
necessarily,
think
but
I
like,
think either the Battle of Caro was involving those two factions, or as a result of that battle, the Antivoli was like dismantled or
yeah.
something. It's not really
So
clear.
we need to go refresh on the lore, but I think this was almost like pre-Citadel, it was said,
Yes.
sort of. And like these two factions disagreed, and so the Antivoli people were basically wiped out. The
Right.
Aquadati are the ones that won. And
Right.
so Suvi was really taken aback when Indri said, go feed the Antivilian,
Yeah.
meaning because
Right.
she's like, wait, those people shouldn't be around anymore. Like, what's going on with that? So she kind of like fills Ursulon in on that backstory so that he understands why she's weirded out by that. So she's like, yeah, I guess there's a wizard from Antivoli somewhere in this palace. um, so after she says that, they're like getting close to the keep, and Ursulon reminds that like he's got a date tonight to go get drunk with Heinrul, and Suvi's like, yeah, well, and he's like, maybe I can get some information out of this at least, and so he actually leaves to like go head toward that, and Suvi, instead of returning to her keep, decides to maybe make her way to the library. So we then follow Ursulon on his way to the keep of the Woodland Green, which is where Hekea is staying. And it's not like a palace, really. It's like this. Brennan described it almost like as like a forest of trees and like a burrow.
Yeah.
And Ursulon goes in here, and in addition to some of Hekea's retinue obviously being here, also some of Grimoire's retinue are here. And in this area, there's like a grotto where Badze and Socorro are, who are two of the spirits that are with Hekea. And they're kind of in a hot spring. And nearby is Heinrul. And Hekea is actually like sleeping during this. And Heinrul is completely naked. Actually, all three of those people I just listed are naked. And Heinrul has like a huge bed sheet just full of liquor bottles.
Yeah.
And Ursulon, I just strips and joins them in the hot spring. And Heinrul then drops his glamour, and he's like this massive dire wolf, and jumps in the hot spring as well. And then he begins to drink some of the liquor. So we then cut to Suvi, who has made her way to this library, and when she arrives, the door is magically locked. So she uses detect magic and can kind of sense this thing on the other side, which is the music box, and feels like this connection to it. And she actually makes an Arcana check and hits a nat 20. So she's able to mage hand through the locked door inside the library and open the music box that way. And when she does this, the music plays, and she hears like this skittering, and then all of a sudden the door unlatches and opens, and inside she can see there's this scorpion made of glass, that seemingly just unlatched the door for her. In addition, there's actually several of these like glass scorpions all skittering around the library doing things, and she recognizes that these are from the Citadel. These are actually from the music box itself. And in fact, she'll come to see that there's a little like glass spider sitting on top of the music box that is like crafting these scorpions that are all going around doing their own bidding. So Suvi walks in, and she kind of investigates around. And well, excuse me, first, or no, yeah, she walks in, investigates around. I think she rolls pretty highly and basically gleans that these stars can only witness things that happen outside and at night. And she's like, while I'm here, maybe I'll try to get some information out of these. So she tries to decide like who she should check in on, and remembers that you need to know like the true name of whoever you want to look for. So she actually says Yoren's name, and all of these stars associated with Yoren start like filling the chamber and start rushing around. And as soon as Suvi says Yoren's name, the mirrored spider that's making the scorpions stops, comes over to her, and each of its 8 eyes start capturing the light of these different Yoren stars, like recording those memories. And Suvi looks at one of them and sees a memory of her parents in Gavriel, basically sharing an ale. And Yoren is there, except in his human form, which I think this is the first time Suvi's ever seen it. which is a slender, wiry Asian man with salt and pepper hair and a beard. And Suvi kind of almost feels too personal, like looking at these private memories of her parents. So she like lets the spider collect them, but then she kind of shifts gears and is like, okay, now show me the king and knight memories. But this doesn't work because that's not his true name. So you have to have the true name to get to access these memories. So then she thinks and is like, okay, Morning Wren Song to get all of the memories of Grandmother Wren to see if she could learn anything about the past covens to help Ame. And she basically kind of needs to narrow down these memories because there's so many of Grandmother Wren. And so what she ultimately realizes is that if she cycles down to look at Hakeya, that'll really get her, or like memories with Hakeya, Wren, and, you know, trying to narrow down the coven. And what Suvi ultimately realizes is that Hakeya is the only witch of the Woodland Green that there's ever been. So she's always been that witch. And so that interests her, and she starts going through Hakeya's specific memories. And she finds one of Hakeya really young, like 16 years old, and she's in this like verdant, evil looking forest, as Brennan describes it. And in this vision, she is like wresting this powerful wand from this tree. And she's like wounded, and it seems to be like the end of a quest. And as like this wand is getting wrested from this in this memory, like all of the stars start to like gleam. And Suvi notices in the real world, not in the memory, like throughout the domed ceiling, she can see another one of the towers here, and like a similar gleam is emanating from this tower, matched by what's happening in the memory. We then cut back to Ursulon, who is extremely drunk, under the poison condition because of it, and basically Heinrul and him are both extremely drunk. And Heinrul's like, I knew your father, like I knew the Great Bear. And they're just having this drunken conversation. And Ursulon's like, yeah, but Grandmother Wren's the one that raised me, and I was last in the world of spirits long ago. Basically revealing that he is way shadowed, but that's okay because I have true friends. And Socorro says, you know, it's good to have true friends. We have true friends as well. And Badze like kind of wraps herself around Ursulon, like trying to comfort him because he's way shadowed. And she's like, yes, like Socorro is my true friend. And then Badze says to Heinrul, you know, we're out of liquor. You should go get us some more. And Heinrul's like, no, that's impossible. I've still got some right here. And he does. So he doesn't go anywhere. And Socorro says, well, Heinrul, do you have any true friends? And he's like, no, my love is Grimoire. I have no need for friends beyond that. And Socorro's like, well, it's important to have true friends of our own kind. And Badze's like, yeah, there's a brother of ours that should be a brother of all of ours. And Socorro says, yeah, there's a man in black who walks a road, and he wishes to speak with you, Ursulon. He walks the road, and in this place there are few roads to tread, so he would really like to speak with you. And Heinrul's like, whoa, the King of Night doesn't walk in Hakeya's retinue. And Socorro says, well, not all of our friends walk in the retinue. And Badze's like, yeah, it'll serve you as well, Heinrul, if you were to accept his friendship. And Heinrul's like, does Hakeya know that you guys are speaking on behalf of the King of the Night? And Socorro's like, calm down, Heinrul. And Badze's eyes light up, and she tells Heinrul to lighten up. And this is some sort of like charm or dazzle that like entrances Heinrul just long enough for Socorro to chop his head off. And Badze, who is again like wrapped around Ursulon, starts to like constrict him and pull him down and says, it would do well to be his friend, Ursulon. And that's where the episode ends. Again, that is episode 29, The Spy. And if you're just on our recap, want to hear our full thoughts, that will be linked down in the description below. What a cliffhanger, man.
Bro.
Devious.
Dude. I listened to this back half twice. I just, like, as soon as I finished it, I went back and listened to it again. Brennan did such a good job of, by the way, like creating the awkward party where like things are a bit unusual, but you don't want to offend everyone.
Yeah.
And it actually leading to be like a nefarious trap. Because like Ursulon comes in, everybody's naked. And so you're like, oh, well, I don't want to. I would be like the guy getting in the pool with like my shirt on, by the way, you know, like people get in the pool and they like, you know, they're in their swim shorts or whatever. And I just have like the full shirt on or whatever. But so he has to get naked. So he's already uncomfortable. And then like, what was it? Was it Badze that came wrapped around him?
Yeah.
And so like that awkwardness of like, oh, like, yeah, she's being comforting, but it's
Yeah.
also a little uncomfortable. And then like you realize this, wait a second, this whole thing was a setup.
Yeah.
Hats off to Brennan, man. I just thought so very clever.
Yeah.
So
Do you remember that SNL skit with Will Ferrell and I think her name's Molly Shannon, maybe, where they're in the hot tub and they just keep calling each other lover.
very,
Well,
yeah.
those of you that know, you'll maybe get it, but that's what I first thought Badze and Sakura were, because Brendan was like describing them all over each other in the hot spring. But then it just got more and more sinister as time went on. And I feel like there's a lot to unpack just right there. And I guess we might as well start there since we're here. So they're clearly working with the king and the knight. And that's a big no-no, as clearly Hyrule was immediate, like even as drunk as he was like, whoa. Like, does Achaea know this? And, she's sleeping. So they're clearly being very intentional about this. And I'm just wondering what's going on because again, we see how loyal Hyrule is to Grimoire. Obviously, I would say Ursulon is very loyal to Ame. So you would imagine that Achaea's spirits should and would be loyal to her, but it seems like they're trying to stab her in the back.
Yeah.
Or do you think it's not really related? Like, do you think they still have, like, do you think they want Achaea gone, I guess?
Or do you think it's aspirations are unrelated to Achaea?
Okay.
Is kind of my take on it. Is it's like what your kids do while you sleep. And it's not necessarily like opposed to you, but they have like they're left to their own devices and ambitions, right? So I just love how conniving this whole thing. They gave Hyrule a chance. I love how subtle this was. Of like,
Hyrule.
Yeah, exactly. They tried to give him an out. He said no. Then they said, Hyrule, he would be a good friend for you too. And Hyrule was like, no, I'm good. Which totally sealed his fate. It's like, did you ever see Training Day?
Yeah.
There were some real vibes of that where Denzel's talking to Ethan Hawke and he's like, yeah, just, this is how it works, man. You got to just put in the time. And there's a moment where you can just see what Denzel's character has decided. I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen it, I guess, but where Denzel decides like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's separate. It's unrelated to Achaea, but how very interesting. Like the king and knight of the night, like walking alongside Ursulon, I thought was just like a random plot thread, and how interesting that it's actually a central piece to what's happening.
Yeah, because that's twice now that he's tried to talk. Well, 3 if you count this hot tub scene, but once when he left the Citadel, and then again when he was leaving his sister's house, right? Didn't he like feel the Man in Black was coming?
I don't know, actually.
I think
he
don't quote me on this, but I think he did.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just, what does he want with Ursulon so bad?
Part of me wonders if it's really about Ame and knowing that Ursulon.
Yeah, okay, yeah, true.
Ursulon is so close to Ame, like maybe the avenue to Ame is through Ursulon, and that might be why they didn't kill Ursulon right then and there too.
Yeah,
it was like, because I mean, think about what would be there's no like slight consequence of this, right? Of killing Hyrule, like Grimoire's champion.
Yeah, that's like, a good point.
Champion's a CR word, but you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, I mean that is interesting because I think it would be allowed, just like because Hyrule was like trying to get Ursulon to bet his life in those wrestling matches. So like I think there are ways it would be okay, but I'm assuming they're gonna lie and say like, we made a wager and he lost, but like
he fell down
and his head fell off.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's iffy, because I do think there are scenarios where it would be okay that he was killed, but they're gonna have to lie, and that makes me wonder, like, can they get away with such a lie, like in a place like this with these
Well,
rules?
and what's also interesting was that it was supposed that Grimoire and Hakea were like, tight. And so I just assumed that their retinues were also tight. This is a direct strike against Grimoire,
Yeah,
the killing Hyrule. I think it's very interesting that these spirits, they clearly have aspirations beyond the coven,
yeah,
is my takeaway from this.
yeah.
Um,
Agreed. And I mean, I think from what we know, I would assume that Hakea and Grimar are tight, and that's just makes this betrayal so much worse by Badze and Socorro. And um, there's not much here, but I wonder if there's a connection that this does have something to do with Hakea directly, in that we know Indri wasn't too worried about the whole even number thing when Ame brought that up. She's like, oh, no big deal. And maybe that's because she's trying to get rid of Hakaya as well. So, like, could this
mm,
all be connected? Where, like, not that they're like literally working hand in hand, but there's some connection here between Indri, the King and Knight, Murara maybe, and Badze and Socorro, like all plotting to not only get rid of Ame, but Hakea as well. And so, like, maybe the Badze and Socorro are the inside men as far as Hakea is concerned, and now are trying to recruit Ursulon, like, for the same reason for Ame type of thing.
it's an interesting idea that Indri would also want Hakea gone. And we've said this for a few episodes now of how we don't think it's as like clean as like, well, if you're gonna kill me, you gotta kill someone else to make it odd. Darn, I didn't think of that. Like,
Yeah,
but
like they had to
it
have known.
actually, yeah, and it actually being this very messy outcome that still somehow preserves Ame's life. So it would be very interesting if that's true what you said, that Indri's like, if it is a power grab, if Indri's like, oh, actually, yeah, that'd be great to get rid of Hakea too. The fact that she wasn't like, she went right over it, that was interesting to me. Like, she didn't even really address it,
Yeah,
which makes me wonder, just like Ame was keen on Indri's on their plan to try to kill her, it makes me wonder if somehow Indri was also keen on Ame's strategy in some way, which they got rid of the scarf,
yeah,
but so I'm interested if that was just like a slip, like Brennan just didn't address it because he was thinking of other things, or if there was something intentional about that. Either way, it just makes like the subterfuge of it just keeps like escalating with each
yeah,
conversation. So
yeah. And I mean, like we talked about, Indri seems smart. So she, like, you would have had to have known the whole two witch problem, right?
yeah,
So again, not saying there's a direct connection there, but it would make sense to me that there was always a plan to get rid of two of the witches.
yeah.
And it just, like, the outward facing as far as the coven is concerned is focused on Ame. But, like, again, if she's smart, she's clearly going to know that, well, we can't really just get rid of one. So maybe that's somehow tied in with this Hakea stuff. Maybe not.
And I like that too, like showing how, you said, use the word smart. I mean, just how brilliant this person is that maybe she wasn't keen, like she saw or heard something, but just like, it's like Ocean's 11. Like, they already
Right.
know if you funnel them this way, these are the decisions they're going to make.
Yeah.
Um, did
Which,
I read?
go ahead.
I was gonna say, did I read the conversation right of Ame trying to like expand that wedge between Indri and Marara? Because that's what I
Yeah.
sensed in her mentioning like details about Marara.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting that that seemed to be new information to Indri, that, like, she wasn't aware of this conversation that happened between Marara and Rin
Mm-hmm.
that, like, Ame referred to. And she's like, oh, she took your glass. Like, it seemed like this was all new information to her, which, like, worried her. Maybe she wondered, like, what were Marara and Rin up to back then? Like, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if that was like an intentional wedge move by Ame, or if she was just purely like, if there weren't
I,
intentions beyond the surface there. I don't know.
I wonder if it was enough to make Indri suspicious of like, would Marara want to get rid of Indri in some way? Like, because it was like, how would Ame know? Like, is Indri now considering, is this like a crazy long plan like Snape and Dumbledore, where like Marara and Ren were like, here's how it's going to play out, here's what's going to happen, you're going to present this like kind of aggressively, but it's all going to, I just wonder like how much suspicion now is going to come from this. And a really interesting comment too from Indri on how Ame and Marara both like to bring up past things. I wonder what she was like referring to with Marara.
Yeah, I don't know. What was Indri the one that said Grandmother Rin got along with everybody except Marara? There was some line like that. I would assume it would have came from Indri and not like Ame or anything.
I don't think Ame said that, but I feel like there was a line something like that.
Which I wonder, like, given that Indri didn't know about that meeting, I mean, I feel like Brennan has definitely been like painting Marara as like not evil, but like not the best, But I wonder if there's some kind of like obfuscation happening there. Like, what if Marara and Rin, while not like best friends or anything, were kind of allied? Because it would, like, if from what I recall from that conversation, Marara came to Grandmother Rin's house, which doesn't seem like the coven gets together all that much. So, like, maybe that in and of itself is showing that they're on somewhat good terms. And she was trying to, like, convince Rin, like, hey, you need to get on board with this. Like, which you could view as, like, an intimidation thing, or it could be, like, a caring thing. Like, hey, Rin, like, and there's a vote mentioned. And now what we know about the coven, I wonder if there was even, like, I don't think it would have been long ago enough. But we still don't really know what that conversation was about. Like between Marara and Rin, but I wonder if it could have been like another coven meeting where like Marara was like, hey Rin, they're gonna try to get rid of you. But I don't know, because wasn't there some conversation of like the last meeting of the Coven of Elders was like hundreds of years ago or something? Maybe not.
I don't know. I guess it depends on how much Rin was aware of her own eventual demise.
Yeah.
Because I don't know we don't have much information about like how long she was sick.
True.
So it's hard to know like when did that conversation happen in relation to Rin getting sick and eventually dying.
Yeah.
So
I don't even really know the point I was trying to build towards, but just it would be interesting if Marara was actually like a closer friend to Rin than everyone knew. And like maybe that was intentional, like because of the weird like spy and like everyone backstabbing each other, maybe like the outwardly facing impression was that Rin and Marara were not cool, but like secretly they were. And so maybe that's why this conversation triggered Indri a bit, being like, wait, what? Like they met?
Yeah.
But to cycle back to the Hikea thing a little bit, the fact that I think it would make sense that Indri would want to take her out. Like if there was this other plan in motion, because she's the oldest, literally has been the only one. So we don't know this for sure, but to me it seems like if Hikea was gone, Indri would now be top dog.
Right.
And that, there's a comment at dinner where Hikea like clearly took a shot. Like it seems like there's a little bit of bad blood there. And then this vision with this wand. Did you take it to mean that wand is now in this palace?
I didn't.
What did you take that to mean, where like the lights shined and then the light was also shining in the tower?
I literally was like, that's cool. And then it just like went to the next scene. I didn't even like process it. So I actually, my takeaway was that there was like another library of stars. I was like, oh, it's like in harmony with this other, maybe like a more secretive library with like, there's more private memories. Like this really special stars are there. But actually you saying that does make a lot of sense, that the wand would be there.
So that was my initial interpretation, but it didn't seem perfect to me, because like why would the wand Hikea got be locked away in Indri's tower? So it could be that, but I like what you're saying, that maybe there is like a hidden star memory
Mm-hmm.
that like has some very like crucial information or vital information that Indri doesn't want anyone seeing. And so
Think of
it's
it this
locked
way:
away.
with how poised Indri is, like, do we really think she would put like the most, I'd say, damning information just behind a locked door? Like
Yeah, I
for, I
doubt
mean,
it.
or just around all these witches, you know? And I'm not even talking about like the wizards. I just mean like, it just to me seems like Indri is so guarded that
Mm-hmm.
there would have to be, you know, I do think it's interesting that Suvi didn't say Indri's name,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
I think this is just totally me like feeding my own theory, but I do wonder if Brennan would have like open-handed been like, yeah, here's all the things you see about Indri, if it would have been like, you don't get the full picture here for some reason.
Yeah. True. I wasn't sure if she'd be able to say any of the witches' names because, like, Morning Rin Song, like it was first and last. But I guess
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't an issue because she looked up Hakea's.
True,
But yeah,
actually.
I think that makes sense. What you're like, so it's like it's kind of a combination. I don't think it's the wand itself because the fact that the lights were shining would imply that it was a star that was also
Yeah,
shining in there. So yeah, I think it's probably like some confidential
yeah.
memories that maybe has to deal with the wand. And the wand seemed really powerful. You know, it's just the vibe I was getting. And so maybe that could be another reason why Indri wants Hakea gone. Like, if Hakea still has that, maybe she wants it.
And I have nothing really of interest to add to this conversation other than I just loved Brennan calling back this memory. It was just so creative in the moment. I don't know how much of it was like ad-libbed, like how much of it was being just created in the moment, but there was something about it that I just really appreciated. And it's always interesting when you like drop something like that, because I feel like when you're a player at a table, you're like, I want that. I want
Yeah.
that wand. You know nothing about it, but there's enough intrigue on the memory that it's like, I need to get this wand.
Yeah,
So
100%. And I mean, I clearly don't know, but I would imagine that wasn't ad libbed at all. That felt like very important to me that like he maybe had
yeah,
that ready to go.
I don't know. I think Brennan is so brilliant, and knowing that he's so great at improv, I could see it either way. Regardless of the case, I just think Brennan's a really good DM. So anyway,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
she got memories about Yorin. I'm curious if she'll go back to the spider later on and kind of dig through those things. Because it would be interesting. There is still this big question mark around Yorin,
Yeah.
and I'm still not fully convinced Steele's version of the events. And I wonder if there's a smoking gun in those memories.
There's got to be. She's got to take a look at him.
Yeah.
And what what I thought was interesting is we know that all these scorpions or whatever were being made and they were skittering all around. I'm assuming they too were like seeking out certain memories. Did the Citadel even know that like that's what like did the Citadel have an awareness that Indri had this type of catalog? Or and so like that was the plan. Like scorpions go get these memories, or is it more like happening in the moment? Music box is open. Here's where we are. I mean, I guess Steele did say library, so she knew about that.
Did them singing activate the music box?
I think
Like what?
so. That was part of
Okay.
like the mission, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing so.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then Suvi opening it like fully activated it, but I think the
Right.
singing was like a necessary prerequisite.
Well, the reason I asked that is because, like, when she first planted it there, why wouldn't she have just gone ahead and opened it then? Like,
Yeah.
why wait a few days later or
Yeah.
however long it's been? So I wonder if, like, the singing, I don't know. I have no
Yeah, no,
idea.
yeah, you're right. The singing was like it had to happen. That was one of like the
Okay.
main things that Steele said. Like, open it, leave, get somebody to sing, come back, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but so I wonder, like, so since the spider came and recorded the Yorin memories, and this might not be a fair thing to say, but it seems as if that's not what the Citadel wanted. The Scorpions were out getting other stuff. Like
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
their main mission. And then when Suvi said Yorin, the spider was like, this might be important, and came to get that too.
I don't know what they'd be looking for, if there's something specific, or if just Steel being the, sort of the Citadel, this master tactician, realizing how powerful the witches are, is just like, give me as much info as possible. And also even maybe like it could be strategic on her end with like, we know the Citadel had these representatives from the main town. I can't think of what it's called. And it seemed like Steel was a little put off by that. Like maybe it's like leverage for like, hey, yeah, see like all the things that I'm doing and we're doing, like to maybe like earn some good graces. I don't know. Getting back to the point, I wonder if it was looking for something specific, or it was just like, here's all the tactical knowledge that we got.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it being either. My conspiracy-minded brain was related to the Yorin stuff specifically was if the Scorpions weren't getting that, which presumably they weren't, since the spider came over to get it itself, was that intentional? Because is there something hidden that looks bad about the Citadel in Yoren's memories
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they don't want Suvi to know,
Yeah.
or
Good
anyone
point.
to know, really? So, yeah, I hope Suvi looks at it and doesn't just hand that over. I mean, just as a player, there's no way you wouldn't. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess we don't know how it works. Like maybe the spider won't listen to her, for all we know. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was
Some
surprised that this went so smoothly. Like, does Indri
Yeah.
have security cameras? Like, does she know when somebody activates the stars? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some.
Well, and it seems like this would be a huge offense.
Yeah,
I mean, even if the information isn't that confidential, so you would assume there's more than just a lock there.
yeah,
It did go suspiciously smooth. I feel like we're heading towards like mass chaos in the next episode or two,
yeah.
which is why I'm excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, and I
So,
I don't know if I'm making this up because I don't remember where I would have seen this mentioned, but I feel like maybe before this episode they said there were only 3 left, which means there might only be 2 left in this arc.
oh,
But
okay.
I really don't know if I'm just making that up or if I saw that somewhere.
Okay. Not much to say about this, but just like the data point of the Antivillian or Antivilus or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Again, I just like how Brennan's style of like these random data points that episodes later kind of start to sync up.
Yeah.
So kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, definitely feel like we know there's a conspiracy to unpack. It's just who's on what side,
Right.
Like in terms of is the Citadel bad? Was Yoren framed? I do think it's interesting that the one memory we did get to see was of them being chill, like laughing, having a beer situation, which doesn't mean Yoren can't be evil, but it's still just like another data point of showing us that, oh, like he was actually friends with your parents. Um, so yeah, I'm very interested to see how this plays in. Like, I can't remember. I need to go back and look at like the lore notes, but like that's what her parents were researching, right? Like specifically that Civil War. Like, didn't she find some notes from her either mom or dad that was like referencing that and like being in Caro? I feel like there's some like something there, but I can't remember without going back and looking.
I don't think they were researching that specifically. I almost wonder, was it part of me wonders, was it Ursulon's sister, like things that she had been researching, because she thought that Ursulon had died at the Battle of Caro. And so she had
I
been,
think she thought he died at the Battle of Starling Ford
oh, that's right.
with the knight
That's
that he
right.
met.
I'm mixing up the two battles then. Yeah,
Which I don't
that's
know what
right.
that. I don't. Do we know what that battle was about?
Well, I was gonna say, I was gonna say, like, and we know Sir Curran died there too, but no, he did not. Yeah. Is there a Battle of Caro? Now that
Yeah,
I'm
I think. Well, I think Caro was the city, and I think this battle between the
Yeah.
Aqueducti and the anchovies happened there.
the anchovies.
Yeah,
And we know, but in the Aquadati, I think the implication is that they then became the Citadel. Like that is that
I think so.
organization.
If not like maybe not like literally like we're changing our name, but like they were kind of like part of the founding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Okay.
yeah, I think that some of these things are loosely connected, but I would need to go back and read the notes of
Yeah.
what her parents were looking into and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Um but yeah, very
Okay.
interesting.
Well, anything else from this episode to talk about?
Let me look really quick. Um
Every arc, man, just gets better and better. I love Indri's theme music, by the way.
yes.
It's just very good.
Uh
Shout out to what's his face?
um
Taylor Moore.
there you go. A couple things. Um sorry, reading through the one I thought it was we talked about this a little bit, so we don't have to go into it again, but just the fact that the people who Suvi got to sing. Well, okay, two things here. Brennan actually was really nice to Aabria in the sense that like he had an NPC ask them to sing. He didn't put the onus of that requirement like on Aabria. Like figure out how to make somebody sing. So that was nice of him. But it also kind of was like a dagger because he basically forced it to be Ame and Ursulon, which if when this plan comes to light, I imagine they're going to, especially Ame, feel very betrayed by being used in that way. Maybe not. I mean, if they're like, yeah, injury sucks. I'm glad you did this. But I imagine there's going to be some betrayal there. So
They have
that'll
such a
be,
hard, yeah, they have such a hard friendship too. Because
yeah.
Ame, they had the great conversation of the previous episode or 2 episodes ago. That was like, we're BFFs, no more secrets. And then like this contract that Suvi's like, hey, about that. You know, Ame's like, no big, there's just a lot of like grace given there.
Yeah.
And yet here's, yeah, I think you make a good point. I think this is a very interesting potential pain point.
Yeah. And then this is not really anything to dive into, I guess, but I just thought it was interesting the conversation between Indri and Ame where I think they were referencing the Suvi's wizard dying and basically saying that like, yeah, bloodshed sucks, but sometimes that's necessary for like the continuation of great magical power.
Mm-hmm.
And Brennan basically called this out in the episode, so I'm not like uncovering a parallel here, but I just love the parallel of that to like what's happening with Ame. Like Indri was kind of saying like, yeah, you might have to die, but like it's necessary for the continuation of great magical power.
Yeah. Right.
So I just liked that parallel there. And then the other interesting thing was Indri saying that her transition was the messiest. Like her transitioning from apprentice to witch of the whatever she is. And then they just glossed over that. Like I'm very curious what happened there.
Yeah. And like even again, talking about how poised Indri was, Brennan basically said like, I'm gonna use my own words because I don't remember the exact phrasing, but like he said basically like Indri for all of her like how careful she is, like she sort of dropped the facade and it was like a look of like pure rage, like hatred.
Yeah. And I think that was specifically in reference to like recalling the chores she had to do as an apprentice.
Yeah.
So like this is very surface level, but like the immediate thing I grabbed from that is that okay, she's always like sucked and like tried to like gain as much power as herself. Like maybe she thought it was beneath her to do chores, and so it just rages her to even think about a time in her life when she was like lesser than. And like maybe the transition was messy because she like forcibly took it instead of like the natural progression type of thing. So yeah, just which would be in line with what she's doing right now again, right? Like kind of forcibly removing two of her sisters potentially. So yeah, very, very interesting with Indri.
You also kind of wonder like what that station was like before Indri.
Yeah.
Because I do like what you're implying there of like if her upbringing was one of like humiliation or like just just incredibly difficult. Like her always kind of like aspiring to be the BA that she is. Like I
Yeah.
wonder how much the station has evolved around that personality too.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it's good stuff. We're feasting. It's good.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I guess that does it. If you like talking about Worlds Beyond, you got to make sure you're in the Discord. We're always chatting about it, and we could always use more Worlds Beyond people in that Discord. Other than that, I think, enjoy GDQ, but I don't think we have any other content. We don't have our stream Friday. So
that's right. So yeah,
anyway.
I guess the next thing we'll do is probably this.
Yeah, I guess that's right, actually. Yeah.
Well, we'll have our watch party again this Sunday,
Right.
but in terms of like podcast content, I think the next thing will be the next episode of Worlds.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just mentioned it, but in case you guys don't know what we're talking about, GDQ is going on right now, so that's kind of a fun thing to do. We just put out a video on it if you have no idea what that is, so I won't bore you with it right here. But speedrunning marathon happening this week, one of Blake and I's favorite things. So if you got, no critical role, you need something to occupy you, definitely check that out. But yeah, that's all I got. Come hang out with us Sunday for the watch party.
See ya.
Until then, bye y'all.